Today I want to sit down and talk quite a bit more about No Man's Sky since the Next update. A couple days ago, I brought you guys my first impressions of Next. I had put in about 6.5 hours at that point. Now I'm sitting at over 30 hours. I know that might not sound like a lot for some of you hardcore bingers, but I don't really binge that hard on video games. I spend more time talking about them than I do playing some weeks. However, when it comes to No Man's Sky, I simply haven't been able to get enough of it, putting in several hours every chance that I possibly can to progress my different little storylines forward, to get to the next planet, to expand my base, to gather more materials, to get more upgrades, to get more mods, to talk to more aliens, to make more friends, to find more crazy things that I didn't even know existed in the game. It has become an absolute addiction for me, something that I just can't get enough of, and that comes, to me at least, as a pretty big surprise. Not because I didn't like No Man's Sky previously, but because I didn't really ever foresee No Man's Sky becoming a proper survival sandbox. And when I think about proper survival sandboxes, I think about just how burnt out on them I actually am. Like, I don't really want anything to do with that genre these days. I played way too much Minecraft for many, many years. I got into Minecraft before it was really Minecraft, like when it had a name, but it wasn't like anything, and setting up a multiplayer server took like everybody's computers being at the same house in 4.5 hours. That's when I started playing, and then that was just like a heavy part of my gaming with friends environment. We just all played Minecraft together, and that went on for thousands and thousands and thousands of hours, to the point where I was like, man, if I see another survival sandbox, you know, I'll probably try it, but I know I won't like it. It's just so burnt on them. And I remember trying a lot of them. You know, Space Engineers comes along, Medieval Engineers comes along, all these games trying to follow in the vein of Minecraft, and none of them able to hold a candle to the experience I had with Minecraft, simply because they couldn't hold on to me for more than a few hours in the first place. When No Man's Sky originally released, and even through its updates before Next, I didn't enjoy it as a survival sandbox. I enjoyed it as a procedurally generated exploration machine. Like, that's what I loved about No Man's Sky. That was the thing that most people used to describe it as not being that great of a game. People would just say, it's a really big procedurally generated world with not a lot of stuff in it, but that was my favorite part of the game, because I fully recognized that the other systems, they weren't that great, man. They weren't well implemented, they weren't well balanced, there wasn't a good economy, it wasn't an enjoyable game to play from a survival sandbox perspective. It was really frustrating. So when Next came along and revamped those core systems and turned it into a proper and really well-honed survival sandbox in terms of its economy and its progression. Don't get me wrong, it still needs a little bit of work. There's definitely things I'd like to see them tweak, things I'd like to see them improve across the board, but at that core, it's a proper survival sandbox game, and a good one at that. One that like has the right amount of hooks, the right amount of rewards to keep you moving from one thing to the next. So now suddenly, that big open procedurally generated universe has a greater purpose. It's the backdrop for a really solid survival sandbox game. It's no longer the only reason that I play No Man's Sky. It is the thing that enhances all of the other reasons I play No Man's Sky. It's the thing in combination that has created the No Man's Sky Next experience that has me once again enjoying a proper survival sandbox. Something I didn't think I would do for a long time. And I find it interesting to see how No Man's Sky comes across to different people, right? I think at the end of the day, if you're into survival sandboxes, you might be frustrated by the scale of the world because it might present a sense of just being overwhelmed constantly, right? Like not really knowing when you should set up or where you should set up. Because in a traditional survival sandbox, you typically hunker down really quick. I mean, like in a game like Minecraft, you could spend a decent amount of time traveling to find the perfect place to build a base, but most people kind of plop down relatively soon. No Man's Sky gives this perception of, well, I could travel for months, years if I wanted to, and you really could, before I set up a base. So I could see how it could confuse people or could frustrate people in that way. But I think for people where it just clicks and they like that progression, it is nothing but benefit after benefit after benefit coming from that procedurally generated universe. It really does change the mood of your typical survival sandbox experience, and that's where I really think it's begun to grab me. It's first and foremost just the setting. It's sci-fi, it's in space, it's that beautiful sort of Isaac Asimov, just classic sci-fi vibe, the colors, you know, the overall texture, the overall aesthetic of the game just feels wonderful. And one of my friends actually put it very, very well, almost generic in a sense. Not in a bad way, but saying that you can pretty much jump into the game and envision your own personal favorite sci-fi experience. And there's a little bit of everything there, if you will, right? So there's no doubt that that grabs me, and that's a big part of it. But when I really think about the moments where I've sat there in-game after doing what is, you know, let's be honest, survival sandboxes have some pretty mundane tasks, craft 1,000 things, refine 100 things, right? That's just part of the system, though, and if you enjoy that, you're kind of sitting there refining some stuff on your awful planet or your paradise planet, and it's just like a good mood, right? It's just a good vibe. It's a strong emotional experience where you're like, this is just a fun place to be. That is the big thing that No Man's Sky Next has in common with Minecraft for me at this point, is I just liked being in the world of Minecraft. There was something about that mood, the music, the lighting, the simplicity of its aesthetic that just clicked, right? It's the same thing with No Man's Sky. It just clicks on an emotional level, and you just have fun doing simple tasks. I mean, I'll give you a couple examples. The other day, I was about to leave behind my base called Sand and Time. It's on a desert planet where there are extremely frequent firestorms that are an absolute nightmare. They just chew through your suit. Even if you've got upgrades for thermal protection, they chew through your suit. So I was a bit of a ways away from my base without my spaceship, just mining some cobalt, and another firestorm rolls in, as to be expected. I was really sick of burning through my sodium. I didn't want to spend any more sodium nitrate. I didn't want to build any more cells to replenish my thermal protection shields. I just wanted to make it back to my base, so I broke out my matter manipulator and I just started tunneling an underground path back to my base, and that's how I made it. And I found another closer cave along the way with more cobalt, and for some reason it was just a really special experience knowing that I had just dug an underground tunnel near my base on a pretty damn large procedurally generated planet in the middle of this massive universe where no one will ever really probably find it. It's just there. It's my tunnel in the middle of desert, in the middle of this alien planet, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of space. You know, there is an element of epicness to that sense of like, man, not many people are going to be where we are. If you're playing in co-op, it's like you and your friends kind of taking over this chunk of space across 10, 15, 20 solar systems, establishing bases and trading routes with the teleporters. There's this extreme sense of grandeur and adventure that you genuinely just can't get in a smaller format experience. So for all of the flaws, all of the negatives that might come with that massive procedural universe, the repetition you might see, there's just enough uniqueness. There's just enough special moments. There's just enough of that sense of truly being in the middle of a wide open space, an entire universe, the potential to actually get lost to some extent, that it really does make No Man's Sky, I think, quite a special experience. And I think a lot of people are seeing that. Now my feed on Twitter has just been endlessly loaded with stories in No Man's Sky. People running into things they didn't even know were in the game, things I didn't know were in the game as someone who's been playing with launch, things that have been added to the game, storytelling experiences, procedural generation gone wrong. It's just this beautiful, jumbled, magnificent mess that has been worked relatively well into a halfway decent loaf of bread, if you will, right? Like, it was barely fermenting. It just looked like it was going to be a disaster. You added a little bit of flour, gave it a little bit of love, kneaded it a bit, and now it's this thing that is actually really quite special. And it seems to get, at least for me, more special the more I play it. The more I stumble into another little storyline or another little piece of lore. You know, there's so much of that story that's just lurking behind the most inconspicuous of NPCs and AI in the space stations, and it just pops out every now and then. And you learn a little bit more about the GAC, you learn a little bit more about the Sentinels, and the world starts to have more purpose. You start to have more of an attitude towards certain races and certain things that are happening in the game world. It changes the way you play, it influences your emotional experience, and it just hasn't stopped being really damn special to me. As someone who has thousands of hours in Minecraft, No Man's Sky is the first game since that rivals the experience I have with Minecraft. We'll probably never go on to have, well, who knows actually. The game has sold incredibly well. It's continuing to sell well. You know, dare I say this game will fall into place right next to No Man's Sky in the realm of survival sandboxes, and it'll do it in its own way, in its own time in this case, and hopefully it'll only get bigger and better and more fantastical and more wonderful from here, because I'll gladly play it until I completely burn myself out 1,000 hours from now, just like I did in Minecraft, and I'll look back with fond memories from that point on. Let me know what your No Man's Sky journey has been like. How many hours have you put into Next, and how do you feel about the game? Is there anything that has come across to you as genuinely special? Have you had any experiences in No Man's Sky since the Next update that have truly been memorable in terms of gaming experiences? You know, has there been anything that's really struck you as, wow, that was really cool? If so, share your thoughts down in the comment section below. Like I said, the game is not without its flaws. You know, the massive changes they've made have left small ripples in some of the other systems that I think need to be caught up to speed. I'd like to see combat improved. I'd like to see some of the smaller creature comforts improved. There are certain things that I don't think need to cost money or don't need to, you know, it's just a lot of refining from this point on as they continue to build out the systems. But I think they're in a really amazing place. And what can I say? You know, coming back to the title of this video, No Man's Sky brought me back to a genre that I just didn't think I had a passion for anymore. And that's special. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
You have been brought here for a purpose, the most important task of your lives.